Great. Hi, we're at St Maels and SULIEN'S Church in Corwen. Now, Corwen goes back in history immensely. It was enshrined with Knights Templar, absolutely coated with it. When we go in the church, you're going to see that there's a lot of Knights Templar symbolism. The feel to the church is really good, and it was built in the 11th. This particular church was built in the 1100s, 1146 to be precise. So that it's 12th century. It's got some amazing artwork in there to show you, and when we get inside you're going to see the font as well. What's more important, like most of the churches we go and see, is it's built on a previous site, and this site's been used since about 400 BCE for various purposes that we'll go through as we go inside. Let's have a look. Obviously it's under the lottery fund now, like a lot of churches, conservation and heritage, which is quite good. But what's nice is that they're trying to keep as much original features as possible. Just going through the doors, which are quite nice, with the velvet marks in them. The first thing you're sort of greeted by when you come in is the font. Now, a lot of people say it's Norman font, but the actual brickwork and the mortar comes from a much more holier site, relatively near to this particular location, where it was actually made of. You see a lot of Jones in here, which is quite interesting, and the Jones themselves have worked in Templars for years, most of the family of the Jones in particular. You can see, nothing much to say about that chest really, apart from it's just quite nice. But when we come around this corner here, we see something interesting. We have the keys to the kingdom. I nearly said its real cardinal name then. Sorry, we've got the keys to the kingdom on here, which is the wonderful Templar markings there. The wonderful gold, the silver, the red, the whites. Very, very nice. And we can see we've even got the medieval style cross at the top there. So in intricate detail, and it's been beautifully preserved over time. The whole church itself gives you certainly a good view of what's around. I love the fact that we've got the two saints, Saint Mael and Sulien, straight there in front of us. But what's interesting is that Jesus on this particular painting is so different to any other church you will ever go and see. For the reasons, yes, he's got the illuminated sun behind, which is always one of the main things, but the sun's different. But look at the difference. He's actually bare-chested. It's very seldom you see him half-clothed in one of these paintings in this particular way. And he's enshrined with the wonderful red robe going round as well, and with the golden pieces on it. What's interesting is it even shows, and again you won't see this in many churches at all, is the representation of the two markings to the feet. Now the two markings to the feet will, a lot of people will tell you that's because of the crucifixion. We know that the crucifixion is false, it never happened. We know that he was murdered by stoning, which is a very large boulder, lowering down onto his chest in order to kill him and suffocate him in the most ghastly and gross way. These markings actually represent something quite different. And you'll see that he has the full markings, but over time the modern Bible and things will tell you that that's because that's how he was on the cross. It's far from. But that's a very interesting depiction of the Jesus. No, he's got almost like an Asian origin to him there as well, which again is quite nice. A lot of the artwork is anglicised to make them look rather Western Europeans. And this particular painting has been shown in a very different light, I guess. And what I like about this is we've got I don't know if you can see this, you've got the wonderful unicorn. The difference with this is it's a real unicorn. It doesn't have the silly horn on the front of it. You know, that turret of the horn is missing, which makes much more sense when you look at the myth and legend of the unicorn. There is no marking above here at all. You know, that was purely added. That was added at a very late period in time. That's so much more a good representation. Very much a Templar marking as well. The unicorn and the dove combined. And we obviously got the lion and the crown, the saru. What I really like here as well is the fact that we're going back to Eludul now in Samaria. So when we look at the actual wing discs, but look at the difference. There's the wing discs there with almost what looks like a hot air balloon, which is quite nice, but it's not a hot air balloon. It's actually just part of the temple pillars. You can see we've got the 5 pillars of the temple there. It's a play on your eyes. It's a bit of a visual trickery, really. When you look at it properly, you see your 5 pillars. You see that that is part of the winged bird, and it's focusing down light, emanating light into the central pillar. So it is a bit of a trick. To look at it visually, you have to try and see that in a funny way. People interpret that in different ways, I guess. What's really nice, again, is that we have the smaller version of it here, soaked within the red, soaked within the blood, which is, again, quite interesting that they've used that particular marking. We've got also the main flowers of Priory, the main herbs, the main life of Priory. We have the most important, we have the rose. Now, everyone knows about the red rose in Templars and Priory. That's pretty obvious. But on this one, which I found particularly interesting, he's showing you the real properties of a daffodil. So you have the rose, the daffodil, and the
clover.
Thank you, and the clover, yeah, sorry. So you've got the clover there as well. So the 3 main points of perfection, so which we can talk about later on. So I found that particularly interesting, that piece of artwork. There's so much going on in that particular piece, it's unbelievable that there's so much detail there. And that's, again, I don't think I've ever seen another church sharing the 3 main potions of life combined together in a painting: the daffodil, the clover and the rose. I've never seen any other artwork like that, so that's amazing here. Such a lovely church. So we're looking at 1146. What we find here is the most amazing piece of artwork again. We've got the high throne, the Ikar, the high mountain. Now, high mountain in Sumerian time means the high throne, so Ikar. And then we've got the wonderful lady in blue, which is the blue, the royal blood, the bloodline. And what she's doing is she's speaking with the man in silver. But look at behind him. He's got his son in the cross, in the Templar cross. Again, we have, but this time we have it in its correct colours. We have red and silver, the red cross on a silver background, the correct colours. Silver is very important to Templars and Priory. Gold is absolutely ghastly, but silver is absolutely valued. And then we have the wonderful robes and thobe that he's wearing there. Note the difference between the royal bloodline of the blue and the silver of Ninasian mark, really. Notice the difference. She's got intricate details within her face. His face is very different, almost like with the no eyes and shaded. And that's not an age discoloration. That's the way it's meant to be. So he's like a shadow in that sense. If that. We have lovely Lady Chapel there. Nothing much to say about the Lady Chapel, really. To be fair, sadly it's been renovated quite a bit over the centuries, and there's not much left of the original thing. It's been replastered, painted, replastered, painted again. So there's not a lot I can really say about that, to be honest. But as we come up, what we can talk about is this wonderful piece. Now this would have been used. It is 1871 when it was actually made, but it's a reproduction of something much older. So you can tell from the brickwork and the style that it certainly is from. You'd think that's something like 500, 600 CE Common Era. It's not. It was this was particularly moulded in 1871 to make it look like it was 500 or 600. So it's been a replacement, really, sadly. Again, there would have been, when it was made in 1871, there'd be gold keys in the shapes of serpents on each one of these going round. Now, I can but assume that the gold has been removed because of its value, or stolen, sadly. but you would have had keys in the shape of serpents that go around there, which is quite nice. And what I really found interesting, the most obvious things are often missed, and the discreet things. You can stay there and just film up from here, Simon. But what we see here is, that's probably the most valuable piece in the church. The most simplest thing. And it's there for a reason. And everyone looks at all the glitz and the glamour and the glories, and they miss the most simple things. Right in front of their eyes. Over here, if we come round, we've got the Lamb of God, which I expect to see in here. Certainly got a really cold feeling to the place, which I'm not surprised. It's certainly the weather isn't very good. What I particularly like, again, sadly this is a replacement window, but originally there would have been a triskelion in the top circular part there. What's often known as the dove. If we take that back to Samaria, we know it's the Benu bird, the B-E-N-U, Benu bird. And it is the Benu bird regenerated, I guess, into the form of a dove. And it's been reborn. So when we always see this particular dove symbol in the church, it goes back to Samaria, to the Enkist paths, and will take you back to the Benu bird, which again is quite nice to see here. In the painting itself, it's quite nice. It's got its usual points there. Again, you don't always see this, which I found again quite interesting. This time round, we not only have the sun crest on what is professed to be the baby Jesus, the shield behind, which you don't often see, but we also have one across Mary, which again, at the crib, is something that you don't normally see. So I found that quite particularly interesting. Note the difference. Alleged, you've got the alleged Father, Son, and Mother, Holy Ghost, all with their sons, the Knights, and then we have the two people there without any crest behind them. You can see this. These are brilliant. That's your wheat for the season. Now, what I like about this is you've got your autumn and your winters. Believe it or not, these represent autumn and winter. Now, in Templar mode, in Priory mode, there's only ever two seasons. Yeah, a summer and a winter. But this one's depicting an autumn and a winter, which I found quite bizarre, but nice in a way. I like the fact we've got the cross there. It's got a great feel to it, and we have the serpents entwined within the circle. So we have the four serpents, the 4 ages of discovery, with the cross. Now everyone knows this cross because it was then used in the medieval period and the knights, and all the challenges that they had. So this particular style and design was used, which is quite nice. But I like the 4 points of the ages, which is quite nice. From the church itself, I say it's a lovely church. It's got some nice feels to it, worth a visit. Maels and SULIEN'S church in Corwen. Now, I will give this on the video. It's quite obvious. Again, we always state the obvious and becomes the unobvious. It could be a play on words, who knows? But spell Corwen backwards, it means new rock. Corwen. Spell it backwards, new rock, without the K, but new rock, if you read it the other way. Could be quite an interesting point to look at. But good. Great, we're at St Peter's, or St Peter's Church in Ruthin in Wales. It's a lovely, lovely church, but sadly we can't seem to find the light switches. So obviously God's not in today to put the lights on for us. A little bit odd, because it's still sort of part way through winter months, I guess. There's a couple of spotlights on, so hopefully we can see that. But as we go round, I don't know how much you're going to be able to see, but I'll talk about it anyway. We've got the sprigs of acacia here, coated on this window with the serpent priesthood, which I found quite particularly interesting. It's a fleur-de-lis there actually, which is quite surprising actually. I've never seen it like that before. Not on a stained glass window anyway. But what I do like is that we've got the compass points ones that come in every now and then. And what it's depicting is actually depicting the two parallels, the two dimensions, how you want it, the two realms, however you want to word it really, but it's showing both points of the circle, so which I found quite interesting indeed. Earlier on we've got the keys there, which is quite nice, and on this particular one I found this particularly interesting because you've actually got John the Baptist. I don't know if you noticed that. You've got John the Baptist here looking at the alleged Christ on the cross, which just wouldn't happen. So that I found quite particularly interesting, that we've got John the Baptist, and it's not one of his disciples, it is John the Baptist allegedly looking at Christ on the cross. So lots of Jones here. There was Jones at the other church as well. You remember I mentioned about the Jones being involved in Templarism, certainly the Royal Order. Not
careful.
As it were. It's the pressing point that you really need to have more lights on. As you can see, the church itself is noted in the Norwich Taxatio, 1254. We know that in 1282, when Edward I conquered Wales and attacked Wales, as it were, that we had issues there. And we also know that the lordships, as it were, went over to Lord de Grey. But on the 16th of September 1400, and again in 1402, the third Lord de Grey was captured and ransomed by Glyndŵr, one of the Welsh sort of rebels, I guess, of that time. And then in the year 1508, the sixth Lord de Grey of Ruthin, third Earl of Kent. That's important to note, that the third Earl of Kent. So we have the de Greys and the third Earl of Kent sold the lordship to King Henry VII. Now we know from Lady Beaufort, the mother of Henry VII, we know that there's some connections there, and we've got the Earl of Kent now connected into Wales, which connects us into the Duke of Kent, which connects us into Freemasonry. So you can see how the webs are woven through time, really, in different connections. I mean, the church itself it's got a nice feel to it. It doesn't feel like we're alone. And the first thing I thought of when I stepped onto here earlier on, my first thoughts were I'd stepped into one of the lodges of Freemasonry, because it's like its own little mini temple with its own little altar, which is quite nice. That we've got the anointing pulpit with the wonderful little tiles, square tiles going around, black and white. I almost expect to see a little Jacob's ladder over here, I guess. It'll be quite nice. As we go around here, the pulpit, one thing I did notice on here again is that we've got private Parry, TJ Parry. Wow, and then there was light. How do we do that? Ah, great, so we have light.